Life is fragile. Without warning, it can change in an instant. That was the experience of Russell Coleman, a healthy young man with a successful career, a great wife and family, and a bright future ahead. One day, suddenly, inexplicably, his life changed completely.
Talk about a lightning strike out of nowhere. It was late July of 2008. I worked late on a Tuesday evening. The next day when I woke up, I had some minor pain in one of my legs. I thought to myself, I either need to toughen up or I need to stretch a little more before my runs. As the day progressed, the pain became more intense and migrated to my lower back, the lumbar region of my back. This was, again, the onset was on a Tuesday night. Start feeling the pain on a Wednesday. By the next Tuesday, I had checked into the emergency room and I was completely paralyzed below the waist. Both legs, I had the use of one toe on my left leg. And when I say completely paralyzed, below about the belt area, there was no sensation.
Russell, an active 32-year-old attorney, was diagnosed with transverse myelitis, a neurological disorder caused by inflammation across the spinal cord, leaving him unable to walk.
The diagnosis was a spinal injury called transverse myelitis, and something that for me was hard to comprehend. It's a lesion or a bleeding in a certain area of the spine, which then causes a paralysis. It's a spinal injury that affects about 1 in 1.3, 1 in 1.4 million Americans, so a relatively rare disease. The most frustrating thing for me was not knowing what the prognosis might be. 30% of those affected by transverse myelitis do not recover at all. 30% are in that medium range and only recover marginally, and 30% recover significantly. So fingers crossed and prayers said, of course, that you fall in that top 30%. But at the time that this was diagnosed, we simply didn't know where I would fall within that range. My personal reaction to waking up one day and contending with paralysis is a sense of helplessness. How am I going to be able to be a father to my daughter when, in reality, at the time, I couldn't even hold my daughter?
Luckily for Russell and anyone in our community who may become paralyzed by an accident or illness, there is hope for a better future thanks to a groundbreaking program at Frazier Rehab Institute in Louisville. Through a partnership with the University of Louisville and Kentucky Spinal Cord Injury Research Center, the pioneering patients who have had the chance to take part in this therapy are experiencing dramatic improvements in their quality of life. Some are even walking again. And the push is on to make this therapy more widely available. Dr. Susan Harkema, a researcher recruited through Bucks for Brains to U of L, is at the frontier of this medical innovation.
After spinal cord injury, you still have that capacity of the spinal cord to generate standing and walking. If you can reteach it to do it without the same signals from the brain. And the way we do that is to use stepping and standing motions to send those signals back to the nervous system, and we do it over and over and over, and we retrain those networks to stand and walk, even when input from the brain is compromised.
Called locomotor training, this promising program at Frazier Rehab is one of just a handful in the United States and the lead center for the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation's Neuro Recovery Network, established to fuel breakthroughs in spinal cord treatment. The results are life-changing. John Hibbard fell off a 2-story scaffold while working as a bricklayer. He thought he might be a paraplegic for the rest of his life.
I stayed paralyzed for 2 months. I don't know where I'd be without it. I appreciate the class a lot. I thank all of them.
For Michelle West, who was shot in the back as she attempted to leave her abusive husband, Frazier's program has helped get her life back.
I had very, very little movement. I mean, I could move a toe and then maybe move my foot a little bit. And then before I left that inpatient, I was able to kick my legs forward some. But other than that, I couldn't stand up or anything.
Louisville business owner Mark Plummer left a round of golf with a blinding headache that ended up being the first sign of a paralyzing hematoma.
When I woke up the next day, all I could do was blink. That's pretty scary.
Mark was ready to travel anywhere in the country to regain his physical abilities. He quickly learned he didn't need to leave the support of his family and friends. One of the leading programs in the country was right in his hometown of Louisville.
I guess the way I describe the locomotive program, that first morning when I woke up and all I could do was blink, I prayed harder than I've ever prayed in my life for a miracle. And I was hoping the next morning I'd wake up and I'd get up out of bed and I'd just walk out of Frazier and life would be back to normal. The locomotive program is the answer to that prayer.
We tend to make plans for ourselves, for our family. We tend to scope things out, what we're going to do tomorrow, what we're going to do next week, what our goals are for the next several years. This has taught me that as much as we can attempt to do that, at the end of the day, it's not up to us. Spinal injury, from transverse myelitis to someone being the victim of a violent crime to someone being in an automobile accident in a split second, affects anyone. It could potentially affect you. It affected me, who went from running one day to being paralyzed the next. Statistics tell us that in America, approximately 30 people a day are affected by spinal injury. We attempt to plan things, but at the end of the day, it's up to God to make that determination. So that was a lesson I deal with and I continue to remind myself on a daily basis.
Even people like Jen Bovair, who became a paraplegic after a rollover car accident in 2001, are regaining physical abilities long after their injury.
You know, it's made a lot more things accessible to me. I feel more comfortable, and just it's made everything in my body stronger, I think.
Even if the person doesn't gain the ability to stand and walk, their bones get stronger, their muscles get bigger, they can breathe easier, and they have better heart function.
Despite these remarkable results, we are only at the beginning. There is much more to be done. There is a long waiting list of spinal cord injury survivors who want to access the program to reach their full potential. Yet despite the recent expansion of Frazier, the spinal cord program faces a critical need to add space, equipment, and trained professionals. With rising costs and reimbursement that often fails to cover the cost of care, it is difficult for a not-for-profit hospital to offer this innovative therapy. To bridge this gap, proceeds from the red carpet and bluegrass benefit will purchase critically needed equipment to help expand the spinal cord medicine program at Frazier Rehab Institute.
Once I became a patient here, an outpatient at Frazier, I realized, as well as friends realized, that there's a lengthy waiting list for many to receive services here. There are those with spinal injury that simply are on a waiting list and don't have access to what Frazier offers. So the purpose of the Red Carpet Bluegrass event is to raise funds to help expand the outpatient program here, the spinal medicine program, to treat some of these needs, to afford the opportunity to those on a waiting list to gain access to this technology, to gain access to these services. Why, if this program has such national prominence, why, if this program is on the cutting edge, do we need to raise funds? What's the core purpose of this event? It's because there's a waiting list, a lengthy waiting list of those attempting to gain access to these technologies, attempting to gain access to these people that can change their lives. 30 people a day, approximately 30 people a day are affected by spinal injury, be it traumatic, be it a hemorrhage, be it a disease I'd never heard of, such as transverse myelitis. We want to afford these people the opportunity to get their lives back. We want to give these people their lives back. We want to give these people their livelihoods back. And the fact that if we can expand the program, expand the facilities, hire more people, it allows us to cut down on this waiting list. We might not be able to remove the waiting list entirely, but if we could bring one or two of these people, if we could cut this waiting list down, we can give these people a chance at having their lives back.
If you want to give a gift of hope, please consider giving to the Jewish Hospital and St. Mary's Foundation for the Spinal Cord Medicine program. Your support will make a tangible difference in the lives of people living with spinal cord injuries.
What do I think Frazier has given me? It's given me the ability to go from seeing the inaccessibility of the world from a wheelchair to then being able to walk using crutches, to now being able to walk using a cane, to being able to run on the treadmill, to a personal goal of mine, being able to pick up my daughter, being able to babysit and care for my 11-month-old daughter. It's given me my life back.